everybody. How you doing today?
Robin here.
Barbara.
Halfway to sane.
And that we are. We are back today with part 2 of what we did the other day, which was the Long Island Killers. Lisk, L-I-S-K. Long Island Serial Killer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is part 2. Does not have anything to do with the Long Island one. But there's some interesting ones in here, so perk up your ears.
Yeah, and it's not that far away from us.
Yeah, it's what? They're an hour away from here? 2 hours away from here?
Well, it's according to where they are. I mean, I could always look it up on a map at some point.
Yeah, it's still too close for me. I don't like it. So we're going to start off with the Jeff Davis 8 killers is what we're going to be doing today. So between 2005 and 2009, the bodies of 8 women between the ages of 17 and 30 were found dumped in the swamps of Jefferson Davis Parish near Jennings, Louisiana. So, yeah, we have to look up, see how
I don't have my phone, or I would be on it looking it up already.
Interestingly, the victims had several things in common that they did. 7 of them knew each other, one pair of the victims even being cousins. Perhaps more bizarrely was that all of the victims acted as police informants, several of whom actually reported to other Jeff Davis victims before their own murders. The investigation into murders of the Jeff Davis 8 never identified a legitimate suspect, but it led to wild allegations of misconduct amongst Louisiana police. And that's where my mind goes when I'm reading these.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you guys have your own opinions. Feel free to leave them down below. Muddling the case further, an investigative reporter later stated the persons or persons responsible for these killings were most likely part of law enforcement. Given each victim's history, this isn't too implausible. The fact that the perpetrator or perpetrators could be investigating their own crimes makes the Jeff Davis 8 a particularly disturbing case. Author and investigative reporter Ethan Brown has revealed how police investigations have been plagued by the missteps in the sheriff's office, continuing to lose or to lost or missing evidence. So, is it just one person that's making things disappear, or is there a couple of them that are in on it together?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah. In October 2019, interest in the case was renewed as a result of Showtime's new documentary on the case. I was going to look that up and I forgot. Showtime had a movie about this. I remember telling you.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to
check it out.
Yeah. I have my papers mixed up. All right. Sheriff Ivy Woods, who took office in 2012, told media they still do not know that all 8s were actually homicides. And I skipped a freaking page somewhere. How did I? Sorry, people. I think we're going to have to start over. Okay, so what we have are 8 victims. That's why it's called the Davis 8. So these are, I'm not reading them in any particular order, whether who was murdered first or who was murdered last. I'm just strictly going down by the names. So we have Loretta Lewis, who was 28. Ernestine Marie Daniels Patterson, who was 30. Kristen Gary Lopez, who was 21. Whitney Dubois, who was 26. Laconia Muggy Brown was 23. Crystal Shea Benoit Zeno was 24. Brittany Gary was 17. And Nicole Guillory or Goulery, I'm sorry if I butchered the name and you know the name, she was 26. And the causes of the majority of these deaths, Patterson and Brown had their throats slit, while the other bodies were in too advanced state of decomposition to determine the cause of death, though asphyxia is suspected in their cause of death. So, Loretta, a little bit about her. Loretta Lynn Chasen Lewis. Loretta was 28, and she was last seen May 17th in 2005 in Jennings, Louisiana. Her body was found in the Grand Marais Canal on May 20th, 2005. Loretta's brothers, Chad and Nicholas, say she was a loving mother, daughter, and sister who was fiercely loyal and always there if ever needed. According to her husband, Murphy Lewis, although they were no longer together, they were still good friends. She spoke every day with her sons, who then their ages were 3 and 6, no matter where she was or what she was doing. Loretta is survived by her husband, Murphy, children Kaylin and Kendrick, and her father, Thomas Chasen, and brothers Chad and Nicholas. And Loretta is considered the first of the Jeff Davis 8 victims. Her crime scene: Loretta's body was found on May 20th, 2005, floating in the East Fork of Grand Marais Canal. She was partially clothed and had no shoes on. The advanced decomposition caused difficulty with identifying and collecting evidence. An autopsy found Loretta had no physical injuries. Toxicology report showed high levels of drugs and alcohol in her system, but no cause of death was determined. Investigators believe she may have been in the canal 3 or 4 days. That's a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Sheriff Ivy Woods, who took office in 2012, told media they still do not know that all 8 were homicides. Like Loretta, was she killed, or was it a possible overdose? It's still a top priority at the sheriff's office. There are still detectives assigned to the case. As soon as they get information that's fresh, everybody jumps on it and tries to check legitimacy. The family concerns: Loretta allegedly told family a detective with Jennings Police Department asked her to spy on a drug deal for them. Jefferson Davis Parish Sheriff's Office and the Federal Bureau of Investigation are working in conjunction to solve the Loretta Lewis case and bring her killer or killers to justice. If you have any information about the crime, please call your local FBI office or the Sheriff's Office at 337-824-3850. I'm going to go with connections of the different victims. So there are many tangled connections between victims, suspects, and the police. Most of the victims knew each other well. Some were related by blood, such as cousins Kristen Gary Lopez and Brittany Gary, or lived together. Brittany lived with Crystal Benoit shortly before her death. The victims also shared in common traits such as poverty, mental illness, and history of drug abuse and sex work. The women all served as informants for the police about the local drug trade. Okay, so it's got to be the police, right?
You would think.
Often provided police with information about other Jeff Davis 8 victims before their own deaths. Kristen Lopez, one of the victims, was present when police shot and killed drug dealer named Leonard Crotchet. Mm-hmm. It's spelled like crochet, but I'm sure that's not how it's pronounced. It's probably Crotchet. The drug dealer named Leonard in 2005, along with several individuals connected to the Jeff Davis 8 case. Okay. Let me reread that last sentence. We're talking about Leonard Crotchet in 2005, along with several individuals connected to the Jeff Davis 8 case, including Alvin Bootsy Lewis, who fathered a child with victim Whitney Dubois, is also the brother-in-law of the first victim, Loretta Chasen Lewis. You see how this is all going around in a circle? A grand jury investigated the shooting and determined there was no probable cause for a charge of negligent homicide against police, even though a Louisiana State Police investigation into the Crotchet shooting concluded that he was unarmed when he was shot to death by law enforcement. However, witnesses told investigators they believed the police had killed many of the victims because of what they knew about the shooting of Leonard Crotchet. I'm sorry, people. If it were up to me, I'd have all of those detectives sitting behind bars.
Oh, yeah.
In December of 2008, a task force consisting of 14 federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies was formed to solve the killings. From the outset, the task force was searching for a serial killer. However, Brown's recent investigative work exposing connections between victims, suspects, and the police cast doubt on the theory that the Jeff Davis 8 is the work of a serial killer. Family members of the victims suspect the police are actually responsible for the deaths. Well, so do I. Come here, Lucy. Lucy wants to join us. Yeah.
Maybe.
Allegations of misconduct. The task force investigative reports reveal a series of witness interviews in which local law enforcement were implicated in the murders. Statements from 2 female inmates portrayed suspects working with the sheriff's office to dispose of evidence in the Lopez case. However, the sergeant who took the statements was forced out of his job, and the allegations were ignored by law enforcement. Sheriff's Office Chief Criminal Investigator Warren Gary was also accused of purchasing a truck suspected of having been used to transport a body for the purpose of discarding evidence. In 2009, the sheriff ordered for every investigator working the Jeff Davis 8 case to be swabbed for DNA in response to the accusations. Thank you, Lucy. Against investigators. However, the office refuses to comment on the results of the DNA testing. Why? What's on there that they don't want anybody to know? Can't they take this to grand jury? What is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I have 2 dogs now.
Hi, Lance.
Lance is in on
Hi,
it.
Lance.
Don't
They're-
scratch.
Police have arrested or issued warrants for the arrest of 4 people in connection with the case. 2 people were held on murder charges for months before being released due to issues with evidence. Frankie Richard, a local strip club owner and suspected drug dealer, admitted to being a crack addict and to having sex with most of the victims. He was among those last seen with one of the victims, Kristen Lopez. Law enforcement's own witnesses have connected Richard to the sheriff's office. The 2 female inmates who stayed at the sheriff's office disposed of evidence The 2 female inmates who stayed at the sheriff's office disposed of evidence in the Lopez case alleged that the evidence was discarded at the behest. It was discarded. Oh my goodness. I don't know what that word means, people. Behest? B-E-H-E-S-T? Well, the evidence was discarded. Has something to do with Byron Chad Joan and Lawrence Nixon, which was a cousin of the 5th victim, Laconia Brown, were briefly charged with second-degree murder in the Ernestine Patterson case. However, the sheriff's office did not test the alleged crime scene until 15 months after Patterson's murder and found it failed to demonstrate the presence of blood. So the Ernestine Patterson case, the 29-year-old Ernestine Patterson became the second victim and what would turn out to be a series of mysterious female deaths in Jeff Parish, Louisiana, over a period of 3.5 years. It is unclear as to when she was last seen, if she was reported missing, and if she was known to disappear for periods of time without contacting family or friends. Ernestine had 4 kids and was a lifelong resident of Jennings, Louisiana. Her body was found on June 18, 2005, less than a month after the first victim was discovered on May 20, 2005. Ernestine's partially clothed body was found by froggers floating in a drainage canal off Louisiana Highway 102. An autopsy revealed high levels of drugs and alcohol in her body. The death was ruled a homicide, and Ernestine's throat had been slit.
Okay. There was speculation early on that Ernestine was killed by Mexican migrant workers after allegedly robbing a group of workers in town, according to court records. Detectives conducted multiple interviews over several weeks, took fiber samples from the trunk of a car that might have carried her body, and removed piece by piece and a porch where the girlfriend of one of the 2 suspects, Jones and Nixon, said Patterson's body had been placed in a trash bag soon after her death. Fibers from the vehicle and wood from the porch turned up no DNA or blood evidence. Jefferson Davis Parish District Attorney Michael Cassidy said the lack of physical evidence left him without a case, supported only by the uncorroborated statement of the girlfriend, who did not actually see the death and did not actually see the body. Okay. So that's the end of that one. Moving on to Whitney Charlene Dubois. 26-year-old Whitney Dubois had not been seen by family for a couple of days prior to May 12, 2007. But they did not report her missing, which sounds weird. Tragically, Whitney's 5-year-old daughter would never have the opportunity to give her mom the Mother's Day card she had made for her. Her mother would become the 4th victim in a string of mysterious female deaths in Jeff Davis Parish, Louisiana. I think that's Jefferson Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Whitney was last seen in the middle of the night at Frankie Richards' house on Jennings. It was claimed that she was only there briefly and left the residence on foot. Shortly before going to Richard's house, Whitney spent about an hour at her grandmother's house, a few streets over. On May 12th, a couple discovered a nude female body lying in the road. It was a rural area about 3 miles southeast of Jennings. It was not a heavily traveled area, but used daily by farmers. At the time, the sheriff's office didn't have any missing persons report filed with their office.
Yeah, they do.
Whitney was identified through fingerprint records on file with their office from a prior drug abuse and forgery charges. The cause of her death has not been publicly released. There were no physical signs on her body indicating manner of death. Toxicology reports indicate high levels of alcohol and drugs in her body. Sheriff Ricky Edwards believes Whitney may have been dead for several days before her body was found. Lonely. Oh, sorry. Her body wasn't found. Placed where it was found, and that she did not die at that location. He also publicly stated that her death might be connected to the 3 deaths prior to hers, and that they may have a serial dumper on their hands. That sounds kind of, I don't know.
Well, he was killing them and dumping them.
Yeah. Although he had no evidence that it was the same person, her body was not as decomposed as the first. 3 given authorities hope. Wait, what? The first 3 given authorities hoped that valuable evidence could be collected. 2 items of interest in the first 3 victims were found in canals. Whitney's would be the first of subsequent victims to be found on roadways or lanes or land. Second, Teresa Gary, mother of the 7th victim, Brittany Gary, said in an interview that her daughter knew Whitney. It is not clear if Whitney knew and or associated with any of the other victims, but has been been alluded. Sorry, I just got it when you did. To in published reports. Heartbreakingly, Whitney's sister Brittany Jones was left a year later wondering what happened to her sister. It is known that Whitney had a daughter who was 5 at the time of her mother's death. It is believed that the daughter is in the care of one of her grandmothers as well as extended family. Oh, the next one is, what is that name?
Laconia
Chantal Muggy Brown. The mysterious death of young women in Jefferson Davis Parish has stopped for a year prior to the death of 23-year-old Laconia Brown. She was last seen on May 27, 2008, around 2 a.m. on the morning of May 29th. A Jennings police officer discovered her body lying on a road leading to the police firing range. She is the only victim found by a police officer. What's fishy is that she was found at 2 a.m. on a rural road leading to the police gun range and found by an officer. Was it routine to patrol that road? And in the middle of the night? Laconia would become the 5th victim in a series of deaths in Jefferson Davis Parish, Louisiana. Laconia was clothed but had no shoes on. Her throat had been slit and her body was doused with bleach. Gross. She was wearing a white top that had been stained pink. Police believed the stain to be blood, and some of the bleach diluted the red blood to pink. Police were also able to discover more evidence and leads in the case than in any other previous death. Laconia's family stated that she may have known something was about to happen to her, and that she was actually living in fear. Just prior to her death, she was good friends with the young girl Brittany Gary, who would eventually become the 7th victim, also leading credence to the possibility that the deaths were somehow connected. Brown was at one time implicated in a rape case along with one of the original suspects in the Ernestine Patterson murder, the 2nd victim. They're all connected somehow.
Yeah.
Crystal Shea Benoit Zeno. Sorry if I goofed that name up. Crystal was 23 years old and was last seen 8/29/08. Her remains were found 9/11/08 near a dry irrigation canal a few miles from Jennings, Louisiana, by a couple of hunters. Krista was employed with Sonic in Lake Arthur until May of 2008 when she moved to Jennings. She enjoyed spending time with her daughter, fishing, singing, and listening to music. She was a people person who also loved spending time with friends. According to her parents, Krista was diagnosed with bipolar at 12 years old and started using drugs as a way to cope with the illness. Crystal's body was badly decomposed, indicating she had been there quite some time. It took nearly 2 months to identify her body. Her death was ruled a homicide, although cause of death and toxicology reports have not been released to the public. All right. Brittany Gary. 17-year-old Brittany Gary walked out of a Family Dollar store in Jennings on November 2nd, 2008, never to be seen alive again. 13 agonizing days passed as her family and a concerned public held out hope that she was safe and would be located soon. Sadly, on November 15th, 2008, her deceased body was found in a grassy area just outside of Jennings. That's sad. That's this one? No. They're done. Oh. Duh! Okay, that was all on Brittany. Brittany was a short and sweet one. Okay, Nicole Jean Glory.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Nicole, 26 years old, was last seen on August 16th, 2009. On August 19th, 2009, less than 2 weeks before her 27th birthday, her lifeless body was found discarded along a busy Interstate 10 in Acadia Parish. She became the 8th victim in a series of unsolved murders that began in May of 2005. The 8th victim. Nicole was last seen on August 16th around 1:30 by her mother. On August 19th, worried about not being able to locate her daughter, Nicole, her mother filed a missing persons report with Jennings Police Department. By 2 p.m., investigators had begun interviewing family. At 2:30 p.m., a call came in to law enforcement that a deceased female had been found in nearby Acadia Parish. A highway maintenance crew had discovered Nicole's partially clothed body. A positive identification was confirmed the day after her body was found, on August 22nd. Acadia Parish Coroner Mark Dawson reported to the media that Nicole likely died from asphyxia. Her death was classified a homicide. She was reportedly seen entering a vehicle on Doyle Street just prior to the discovery of her body. The 7th victim, Brittany Gary, was living on Doyle Street at the time of her abduction and murder. Authorities were quick to point out she was known to frequent the same area and ran in the same circle as the other murders. She had an arrest record dating back to 2001 for arrest record for theft, burglary, aggravated assault of a police officer, and possession of drug paraphernalia. At one time, Nicole served a 20-month sentence for possession of crack cocaine. At the time of her death, Nicole had a warrant out for her arrest due to a parole violation. She was also closely related as a first cousin to Jefferson Davis Parish jail warden Terry
Hillary or
yeah, that's it. Nicole is survived by her children Blaze, Michael, Sky, and Holly. Her parents, Charles Wayne and Barbara Glory, and sisters Jennifer, Jessica, and Valerie Moat. So there's 8 victims in Louisiana.
Yeah. Last one was when again? 2008, 2009?
2009.
Yeah. So if it's law enforcement and they stopped in 2009, did they leave the force? Did they move away? Are they now too old to be moving?
Or did they pass away?
Or did they pass away? And I want to know what the DNA reports were that they refused to let out.
Right. Why
is it a secret?
Yeah, because all those police officers got tested.
Right.
And not one DNA has said, "Oh, they're all nobody has said, "Hey, they're all clean."
Right.
It's not them.
Right.
Here are the reports. So,
they were just sealed.
Yeah, which leads us all to believe,
that
somebody in law enforcement.
Yeah, I think it was a police officer who is either, like I said, not with the force anymore or whatever, but that's my take on it.
Mine too.
What's your take on it? Leave your comments below.
Yep,
Yes, please subscribe, like our video, and hit that notification bell so you know when our next video is coming out.
All right, guys.
Bye.